This is it, everybody. You take an inhale in.
This is the book and the subject we can't get enough of, and you can't get away from. And boy, you've tried, haven't you, James?
Not so much. It depends. Sometimes you feel like Jimmy Buffett singing Margaritaville for the 4 millionth time. But I will say, every single time I do a talk, there are people that come up that say their kid had ADHD, their kid was wetting their bed, their grandfather was snoring, and they learned how to breathe, and it significantly impacted and improved those conditions. So that keeps you going, right?
Of course it does. And you are officially unqualified as a breathwork teacher, but you sort of have acquired qualification. I know that you always shy away from that, but you know so much about this subject now.
Well, my job as a journalist is not to be an evangelist for any of this stuff, right? It's to go out and talk to the experts in the field and try to figure out what the story is. And that's what I tried to do here. So people say, well, convince me how to breathe better. I want to sleep better. I'm not here to convince anyone to do anything. You have to be curious enough about improving your health, improving your breathing. Then you can learn some tips, and then you can figure it out for yourself.
Where has this book taken you on your travels? And who have you met, and where have you spoken? And give us a bit of your experience of the success of your own work.
Only the finest dental conferences in the United States have I spoken at. For some reason, you write a book about breathing, you think the last thing you're going to be doing is talking to a bunch of dentists, but that's the jam. They've been very interested because they've been talking about a lot of this stuff for decades and decades. So this has taken me all over the place.
Tell us about the connection there. I mean, if you've read the book, obviously you start off with teeth and the mouth and Neanderthal faces and bone structures and things like that.
There's something crazy happening in dentistry. It's actually been happening for the past decade, where there is this tidal shift in the way that we are treating people. And because of the older versions of treating them with braces and headgear have, according to many dentists, greatly impacted people's breathing and caused them a bunch of problems. So things are shifting right now because patients are starting to sue their dentists for ruining their faces and ruining their airways. And that's the only way this is going to change, through legal action. And so to be in the middle of that, not know you're in the middle of it, because I'm writing this book, I came upon this story and then realized that there are these two forces coming together, and it's getting very vindictive and interesting for an outsider.
So for people who are new to this topic, they probably won't be if they listen to the show regularly, but some will be, and for their benefit, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art, the paperback, millions of copies now sold by James Nestor. Can you give people like 3 tempoles from the book so they can get their head around what we're about to talk about?
I think the first thing that people need to understand is that the pathway through which you breathe makes an incredible difference to your health, your athletic performance, your sleep, and more. That means do not breathe in and out through the mouth. You have to be breathing in and out through the nose like every other mammal in the animal kingdom. And this is something that people have a really hard time figuring out, because most people sleep with an open mouth, and they don't realize that that's one of the main drivers behind cavities, behind lethargy, behind so many sleep issues, is breathing through an open mouth. So that's the first one. The second one is we often breathe too much. We breathe too much because we think we are getting more oxygen by doing this. We are getting less oxygen by doing that. And the last one is you can use your breathing to do a bunch of things that are supposed to be scientifically and medically impossible. You can heat your body up, you can heal yourself of several chronic conditions, and you can enter into very strange altered states of consciousness through your breathing, as yogis have done for thousands of years.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is all about the breath, isn't it? That is it. That is our natural fuel station.
I think so. It's not. Some people just, when they hear about a diet, they just say, oh, it's all, if I just eat well, I don't have to exercise, I don't have to sleep well, I don't have to breathe well. But I think that breathing is a part of this larger matrix of health, but no one has been talking about it. People have been talking about nutrition, they've been talking about sleep, they've been talking about exercise. No one's talking about breathing. But if you're not breathing well, you're going to be sick.
Yeah, honestly, since meeting you, things like interviews on this show have got better.
How so?
Because I nose breathe during them, and I box breathe sometimes. I'll do relaxing breaths other times during interviews. I am therefore more present. sometimes the interviewees see me doing it whilst they're talking to me, and they are somewhat bewildered by it at first, but then realize that I'm doing it for the benefit of me, primarily, but also the whole environment. Then that gives them a sense of appreciation during the interview. It's just crazy. It's just people are aware of you being more mindful of trying to do the right thing for all the right reasons. Things like that. When I was running the London Marathon this year, I nose breathed consciously at the beginning. I did the triple inhale, double inhale to get myself going through the first mile because there was too much adrenaline going on because there was, not too much, but, unhelpfully so. You think it's helpful at the time, but you sort of need more energy for later on in the race. And then I started to nose breathe for the last 6 miles consciously for the whole of the last 6 miles and smile. And the combination of the two made it the most enjoyable final quarter of a marathon I've ever... Things like that. And on and on and on. The chronic illnesses you talk about, give us some examples of those.
Well, if you're talking about asthma, chronic anxiety, panic attacks, people think that these are incurable conditions. But we've known for more than 20 years that the vast majority of people, not everybody, the vast majority of people who suffer from these problems have severe breathing difficulties that are either exacerbating or causing them to have these issues. And you fix the breathing and the symptoms are greatly reduced, and sometimes they disappear entirely. And I've heard this from hundreds, thousands of people now, and they say, why isn't my doctor telling me about this?
The doctor doesn't know.
The doctors don't know. Yeah. And they're resistant to it. So.
And the thing about, another thing, not the thing, another of many wonderful and useful things about breathing, if you focus on like a nose breath, for example, you are therefore vicariously also meditating because you're focusing on the breath. So if I do a bit of this in an interview, and I've just done it whilst you were talking again then, it gives me a moment of pause, and it's not a distraction because I actually can hear you more, even though I'm focusing on you less in a way. But at the same time, I'm then aware of myself, the eye of me, as opposed to just the ears of me, and what the witness that's listening to what you're saying and looking what and who you are. And then I sense my feet on the ground, and then again I'm more present, and therefore you can sense that. And the deeper our communication comes from, the deeper it goes to, and we have a different level of conversation. Can you sense that? Can you feel that now?
100%. And a lot of people think this is all psychological, or they call it a placebo effect.
Yeah.
But the science is very clear. We can hook you up to various machines, look at your brain, look at the oxygenation in your body, nasal breathing versus mouth breathing, and there is a vast difference between the two. So what is happening to you physiologically is then affecting you psychologically, and of course you're more present because of that. I prefer more invigorating breathing in the morning. That's the right thing for me. So everybody's different, and that's why you can't have a blanket prescription for everyone all the time. You have to see what your body's responding to. Sometimes if you're jet lagged or if you're traveling, a different breathing modality is going to be more beneficial for you.
So invigoration, people will be listening to that now and they go, ask him how to invigorate with the breath.
There are various things to do. It goes back thousands of years. There's Kundalini practices, there's pranayama practices, there's the double inhale out through the mouth. That's relaxing, but it can also be invigorating if you speed it up. So I like that one because it focuses you and it also gives you
Can you just
energy.
give us an example of that now?
You guys ready? This isn't going to make for good radio.
Doesn't matter.
Because it's just going to be silent.
I think it'll come across.
Maybe I just did it right there and you don't even know. So this is it, everybody. You take an inhale in. You pause, take another inhale in on top of that inhale, and you just let it out. Naturally let it fall out. Try it again. Inhale in, pause, inhale in again, naturally fall out. Do that about 4 or 5 times, and then go back to a rhythmic, slow breathing pattern of around 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. So this is not woo-woo, crazy new age stuff. This has been proven. I've looked at my body, how my brain reacts when you breathe this way. Anyone can do this. And it relaxes the body and makes you more alert, but not in an edgy way.
How does the second inhale work What extra effect does that give your physiognomy?
This is a physiological sigh. We're sighing throughout the day, and that double inhale allows you to get more oxygen. There are these alveoli in our bodies. We have about 500 million of them at the ends of our lungs. They are these little balloons that inflate, and when you inhale again, it helps them. Just like a balloon, you blow in once, it doesn't really do much. You blow in twice, it inhales.
Yeah.
So these little
more
structures,
than double, funny enough, because you've taken the stress out of it, the strain out of it.
That's right. Our bodies work in the same way. So it allows you to get more oxygen more easily, and it calms the body down.
And I should imagine, I don't know, because I've never asked you this before. I thought I'd ask you every question in the world about breathing, but it may have an effect on the parasympathetic nervous system in as much as your body doesn't expect you to take a second inhale. So that will alert your body to something else that's going on, perhaps.
This is something you are forcing your body to do that it already does naturally.
Right.
When you are relaxed.
All right. I see. Yeah.
This is something your body is doing to reset its respiratory system, right? And to calm it down. This is what we do before we go to sleep, to calm your nervous system down. So we're taking control of that, hacking into it, and doing it consciously to elicit that same response.
What I love about you talk about, if you consciously change your breath for your benefit, whether it be momentarily or for a longer term, and then you go back to, you let yourself fall back into a more natural rhythm of breathing. I that's the bit I really look forward to, because it's much calmer than I think it's going to be, and it happens by itself, and it's really, really useful in exercise or in bed or in the middle of the night when you can't get to sleep. Because if you deploy this kind of breath work in the middle of the night when you can't get to sleep, you sort of don't have to sleep, because you're getting a bit of sort of non-sleep deep rest anyway. And then guess what happens after that? You fall asleep anyhow.
I think that a lot of these methods, people may feel overwhelmed. They're like, oh, I don't need something else to do or something to feel guilty about, right? We're already feeling guilty about the food we're eating, not exercising enough. The point is to accustom your body and train your body so that this becomes the natural default. You don't want to have to be thinking about all this stuff all the time. At least I don't. But sometimes that takes months and months of practice. It did with me. And now I know I'm not walking around with an open mouth, which I was for all my other years.
And you become more aware of it, don't you?
You become aware of it, and you start to feel that reaction from your body, naturally more chill or more energized, depending on what you're doing.
The more you get into all this stuff, and it isn't woo-woo, there is some woo-woo to be had, and I love all that as well. But you can then say to your mates or yourself or your dog or your plant or whatever you want, I'm just going off to have a bit of a breathe. And you can go and you treat yourself to a 5-minute conscious mindful breathing session or longer. And it's addictive. It's a real sort of a positive addiction, positively good for you addiction. And then what happens is you go, well, there's an hour of my day gone. I feel better about what's happened. I feel better now, and therefore I'm more set up for the next few hours in my day. It was free, right? And I don't really need to consume anything that I have to pay for to distract myself from feeling how I feel now, because I don't want to feel different. So life becomes less expensive, fuller and deeper, and I love all that stuff.
Well, a lot of these methods, some of them you do need dedicated time and a corner to do them, but the vast majority, you don't need to put on your yoga pants. You don't need to put on dream catchers or anything. You can do them in your car. You can do them at the office. You can do them walking around, because we're breathing everywhere we go. So you can make those breaths better and absolutely see a benefit from just training the breathing that you're doing throughout the day.
Yeah, and if you're waiting for a response, or you're waiting in line, or you're waiting in a traffic jam, that has a very negative connotation. Waiting means you are in fact sticking around for this moment to change, which means you are depriving yourself of the only moment you've got, which is the now. And if you dive into all this stuff, you will never wait again in your life, because the moment that opportunity, or that what was in the past framed as waiting, presents itself, you think, I'm going to have a little breathe here, or a stretch, or I'm going to give some gratitude for something, or I'm going to send a text to somebody who's not expecting it and hopefully raise a smile.